Hello and welcome to Views on News. I am Jawad. Tehami, Pakistan's caretaker Prime Minister Mr. Anwarul Haq Kakar is in the United Arab Emirates on a two-day official visit, and during this particular very important visit he will be holding an important meeting with the President of the United Arab Emirates, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, and during the meeting bilateral ties and the advancement in those particular relations in multiple areas would come under discussion between the two leaders. Also, a number of memoranda of understanding will also be signed between the two countries during this particular visit. Now, Pakistan and the United Arab Emirates enjoy a long-standing relationship, a warm relationship that has stood the multiple tests of time. And also, Pakistan's envoy to the United Arab Emirates, Mr. Faisal Tirimzi, says that the bilateral trade volume between the two countries is around $10 billion, and around 1.8 million Pakistanis are serving in the United Arab Emirates. In today's program, we are going to talk about the significance of this particular visit by the caretaker Prime Minister to the United Arab Emirates, and what could be the likely outcomes after this particular meeting in as far as enhancing the bilateral ties in multifaceted areas is concerned. We'll be taking that understanding. For that, we are honored to be joined in the studio by Dr. Manzoor Ahmed. He is member task force tax reforms. Dr. Manzoor, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show tonight. We really appreciate that. At the same time, in the studio, we are honored to have been joined also by Mr. Jauhar Saleem, his former foreign secretary. Mr. Jauhar, thank you very much for your time, also for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Now, Dr. Manzoor, if you allow me, let me begin with Mr. Jauhar. Mr. Jauhar, let's try to encompass what have been the hallmarks of this particular bilateral relationship between Pakistan and the United Arab Emirates, and what had been the major convergent areas between the two countries.
Thank you. I think it's a very important relationship. There is, of course, we have shared ideals. There's the affinity of faith as well. And then we have a very strong and vibrant economic relationship between the two countries. UAE is one of our largest trading partners, one of our largest investment partners, and besides that, we have a very sizable and dynamic diaspora in the UAE. So it is also one of the countries from where we get the highest chunk of remittances. I think this particular visit is in keeping with the excellent relations between the two countries, the very fraternal, cordial and cooperative ties. And this visit entails and would entail a number of meetings, and those meetings would be aimed at further strengthening the economic cooperation between the two countries. I envisage that during this visit, the MOUs that would be signed would be very significant. They would, in my understanding, that would be a pleasant surprise for many in terms of their volume and magnitude. And there will be multiple areas: mining, aviation, food security, logistics, ports management, banking, financial services. So there's a huge spectrum of cooperation, of potential cooperation, and this visit aims at concretizing, institutionalizing that potential. And this comes at a time when we all know that Pakistan is facing a great deal of economic difficulty. Pakistan is lacking in the type of FDI that we really require, and the type of FDI which countries in our region are getting. For instance, India, for instance, even Bangladesh, and of course China has been one of the largest recipients of FDI. So I think this augurs very well for Pakistan, because this would be a beginning. These MOUs would, inshallah, start a new chapter. We would see more investment coming from not just UAE, but from other brotherly countries in the region as well. And that would really help Pakistan spur its economic growth, which has been pretty stagnant lately.
Right. Dr. Manzoor, what's your understanding when we talk about Pakistan's trade relationship with the United Arab Emirates in particular? One of the top trading partners with Pakistan, the United Arab Emirates. What does that signify when we talk about the economic relationship between the two countries is concerned?
Well, more specifically, the UAE is, I think, our third biggest trading partner. We have, I think Mr. Jauhar Saleem already said, something like 10 billion bilateral trade, with UAE's exports to Pakistan about 7 billion, 7.5, and Pakistan's 3 billion, around that. Big trade, obviously, because it's, UAE is oil producing, so it's a lot to do with half of that is into that sector. And Pakistan's, unfortunately, we are not into, not many manufactured products go there, let me put it this way. It's rice and such things. Some manufacturers, yeah, some linen, bed linen, etc., but otherwise it's these raw materials. But there's huge potential. Unfortunately, if you, during the last many years, I think at least I can recall 15, 20 years, our exports to UAE have not really risen the way other countries. I mean, it was annual rise was less than 1%. So, but with this potential, if this investment that Mr. Saleem was just talking, if that materializes, there's a big scope. There will be a lot of machinery, etc., coming from that side, and then the output being produced would, normally go through the way. So the potential is very big. If you want me to give you some specifics of investment, I can go into it. But
please go ahead.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
Various areas. First of all, this was signed a while ago, but still it's in the process. The final has not been done. The port efficiency and port capacity. I mean, already the talks have made a lot of progress on one of the Karachi Port Trust WAF. There are 4 or 5 terminal berths that are going to be run by UAE. They're going to expand the capacity from about 750,000 to 1 million 20-foot container. That's one thing. But they'll be investing huge amount, and over 5 years it may be in billions. For the time being, right away, it's about 50 million for infrastructure, cranes, etc. So that's on the port side, and this Abu Dhabi ports, etc., is very advanced. I mean, they have many ports around the world, the most efficient ports around the world. Now, if I can say, another big area of investment is in information technology. I mean, I think Ministry of Information Technology, their estimate was that they need something like $400 million for this optic fiber from Islamabad to Gwadar and Karachi, and that's it's expected that they'll be funding that. And then there are all these other areas. It's not yet very specific as to where, but those areas are those 5 priority areas. It is mining, so a lot of machinery, etc., agriculture. So I just mentioned IT, but then this software, and I think these are the 4 or 5 areas that as a first priority, investment will be coming in these, so that Pakistan can make use of what is already there, and with modernization, instead of the current, the break and a lot of wastage and everything, so that for minerals I'm talking about, so they could right away within a few months they can get that going, and then the government plans for information technology and all the software and other outsourcing. The plan is to go very quickly. For the time being, we are about 2 to 2.5 billion. So the plan is to go to 10 billion. So that will be very helpful, having this optical fiber and very fast cable service. Yeah.
Right, please go ahead. Please complete your thought.
No, okay.
Okay. Mr. Jauhar, now the cooperation specifically when we talk about the energy sector, how has it been, and looking in the future, how these two countries can cooperate on that particular front? What are the major avenues in that sector?
Well, in the area of energy, first of all, we get the bulk of our fuel needs in terms of petroleum from Saudi and UAE. But besides that, there's a lot of areas in the energy sector, renewables, for instance, power production, conventional power production. Then, Pakistan is very much involved in building energy corridors. At least they are in the planning stage. So I think UAE could get interested in that as well. So I see a lot of possibilities. And then again, if we could have some oil refineries, because petroleum is one thing, but then refining it or some petrochemicals industries. So that is another area which could be a potential area of cooperation. But we have to see that the MOUs which get signed during this visit, what specific areas they would lie in. And that would give us an indication for the next few years.
Right. Already in your take, you mentioned about the foreign direct investment. Of course, that particular thing has been the focus of the authorities here in Pakistan, especially given the fact that there has been establishment of the Special Investment Facilitation Council to attract the foreign investment into 5 key areas. So when we talk specifically vis-a-vis the United Arab Emirates, out of these 5 areas, including agriculture, IT, and mines and minerals, and which one do you think could be at the top of all, where this particular investment could be attracted from the UAE in particular?
All these areas are important. Recently, there were media reports that UAE has spent a pretty significant sum of money in acquiring lands in Africa. In fact, one news report said that the size of land they're acquiring is equal to the size of the United Kingdom. That is for, although that was more development oriented, because in that area, they will be doing projects for development of the people there. In terms of Pakistan, food security, agriculture, and food security is very important for Pakistan itself. It's also important for them. You see, producing food is one thing, but then packaging it, preserving it, and marketing it is another. And in these areas, we haven't been particularly strong. UAE, on the other hand, is one of the great trading nations in the world right now, and they have developed expertise in the last few decades, I would say, that could come very handy. Then IT is another area. We have the workforce. We have one of the largest workforces available in the world in the field of IT. But unfortunately, we do not have the capital. We do not have those developed companies which could really benefit from this huge workforce that is available. So, but UAE, on the other hand, is on the cutting edge of, if not technology, on the cutting edge in terms of acquiring technology from all over the world and then using it for sort of their development. And they also have the capital available. UAE is a very rich country in terms of per capita. Their investment fund, the sovereign funds available with the UAE government are pretty well endowed. So I think IT, agriculture, then the sports management is another important area. As it was mentioned already, they have developed a great deal of expertise. They're very, very efficient in this particular area, while we haven't been, unfortunately. So that provides a great potential for collaboration. Then again, mining, because Pakistan is, we have huge natural resources. Just to give some examples, Italy has a handful of variety of marble, which is locally available in terms of the mining resource. Pakistan has a much wider array of varieties available. But look where Italy is in terms of marble export and marble development, and where Pakistan. Again, what we lack in this is capital, and we lack the institutional expertise. So I think that again could be, and this is just one example. Marble, you know, like there are multiple.
So when you mention of institutional expertise, so how big an impetus when you talk vis-a-vis SIFC? How do you think they are going to be related?
Yeah, SIFC. You see, SIFC has been set up to number one, to overcome the bureaucratic hurdles which in the past have hurt Pakistan's acquisition of foreign direct investment. So it is basically to facilitate that, you know, because it is in a way it's going to be a pan sort of departmental or pan ministerial organization, which could be the gateway, you know. So and SIFC has been developed with, you know, with this view that we have to have a focused endeavor rather than a haphazard endeavor to attract FDI. And in that, I think there have been previous contacts between Pakistan and UAE, and there have been previous contact between Pakistan and Saudi Arabia, where broader parameters, understanding of, you know, in terms of broader parameters was arrived at as to what could be the potential areas, what type of facilitation could help it, you know, what could be the, what could be the potential volume of the sort of, you know, like of the cooperation. So SIFC is looking at all these areas, and it's basically an implementation agency in that way. So it is something which is G2G in that particular aspect. But having said that, the active collaboration that it happens, it also has to be B2B. In fact, for most part, it has to be, the governments can spur it, the governments can facilitate it, and sort of, you know, like, but eventually it is the private sectors which have to, you know, like carry out those sort of, you know, like a bulk of those investments. So, so hopefully.
So when you talk of SIFC in terms of, you know, overcoming those bureaucratic hurdles, so do we understand it provides for doing of ease of doing business? Is that so?
Exactly, because on the ease of doing business index, Pakistan is not particularly high in terms of the global index of ease of business, and similar indices as well. And I think it is basically to circumvent those type of problems. It is basically to ensure that those type of hurdles, institutional hurdles, do not come in the way of foreign direct investment.
Right, Dr. Manzoor, your understanding regarding this, the attracting those the foreign direct investment, particularly vis-a-vis United Arab Emirates, out of these key areas, which are the focus of the Special Investment Facilitation Council, and also, as Mr. Jauhar has mentioned, overcoming bureaucratic hurdles, because it provides a one window operation. Now, how big an impetus do you think it can provide when it comes to the provision of ease of doing business here in Pakistan?
Well, two things. You know, this is a little unusual time for Pakistan because we had a previous government, and then there's interim government and the other government. So the foreign investors were not sure. You know, they said, what's the continuity if a next government comes and says, you know, we don't agree with that. So this is kind of to show some continuity, because this is, involvement of the whole of government, you know, security forces are part of it and others. So that ensures that. Then this SIFC is in fact an extension of Board of Investment. You know, this same secretary from there is a secretary here, and under the same law, etc. But as Mr. just mentioned, just to cut the red tape, because the experience of foreign investors were that whenever we want to come in something, it takes years and years and years for some decisions because of some previous problems, history with NAB, etc. You see, bureaucrats are not keen to. So at least this is being pushed from there, and so the decision making is much quicker. So your question was, I a little bit, I got slipped. Your question was?
So, I mean, the kind of impetus is going to in terms of giving the ease of doing business for the foreign investors here in Pakistan?
Yes, yes, because this gives an overall direction to all the departments, and there's clarity. Okay, this is what we want. So I think it gets pushed, and there's much less red tape than we normally
So
used
when
to have.
the bureaucratic hurdles are overcome, one window operation is provided. So naturally, doesn't it happen to be a lucrative opportunity for the foreign investors to invest in a certain particular territory?
Yes, yes, yes. That's true. That, you know, if they see that normal procedure was it goes from one ministry to another, to another, to another. So many ministries used to get involved, and by the time so many ministries clear, it used to take a long time. So now they see something is really in the process. It's going to happen. So it's put up to SIFC, and once they clear it, so those other clearances now they don't take that much of a time. They know that it's been cleared from the top level. This SIFC is headed by the Prime Minister, and all the top people are there. So the normal decision process was that starts from the bottom. Every ministry looks, goes somewhere top, then sends to another, sends to another. So that has been, and we understand that this is not going to be a permanent solution, but it's a temporary solution till the things get more settled.
Right, Mr. Jawad, now continuity of the policies, as Dr. Manzoor has just alluded to the fact that it has been an unusual time for Pakistan, is back to back. There was an elected government already, now there is an interim government, and of course after the elections the new government is going to come in. When we talk specifically of this interim government, it pledged to continue with the policies which the previous government, the elected government, had. Now, how important or crucial this particular continuity of the policies happens to be for keeping the foreign direct investment continuing to in a certain country, and making the dividends of those sustainable in the longer run?
I think it's critically important. See, there are 4 or 5 things which investors worldwide look at while making a decision for investing in a particular country. One is security of investment. Secondly, the general security in terms of their safety. Thirdly, the continuity of policies. And that's in Western countries that normally happens, because you see one government respects what has been undertaken by another government. And that is why in Pakistan people have been talking about, like they had a charter of democracy, now they're talking about a charter of economy. Because you see, investors don't want to, because they come under a certain sort of perimeter, right? Like a certain understanding that, okay, this would be the tax break, this would be the sort of, like the import duties, for instance. These would be the sort of, like the percentage share they could own, whatever. And then if it's all changed, or the priority of the next government is on, is some other industry rather than a particular industry, they don't want to see that. But I think beyond that, we also have to look at certain other areas. For instance, I think in Pakistan, one of the biggest problems that investors face, whether these are foreign investors or these are domestic investors, and domestic investment is also very critical for Pakistan, and that is that we do not have contract enforcement in this country to the degree that the investors would want to see. Here, if you have a contract and you have to get it enforced and go to a civil court, sometimes it takes 15, 20, 30 years even, basically, because it's so complicated, the laws here. It's sometimes mind-blowing, totally baffling. A court could go all the way to the Supreme Court, and there it could be remanded again to a trial court, so which would mean another 15, 20 years. So this is something the investors don't want to see. Then the last thing I would mention here is we have been particularly weak in terms of sort of, when we sign contracts with the foreign investments, whether they are G2G or B2B, we do not really have the expertise or the capacity in terms of the legal capacity to develop good international contracts. And that is why almost every contract that is signed by Pakistan with other countries runs into problems, and then sometimes the matter is taken to
overcome that? how to overcome this particular problem that you just mentioned?
Yeah, I think what we need to, first of all, we need to, this last problem that I mentioned, we need to build capacity. The government departments, I know that, I've worked in the government myself for over 3 decades. They do not have the capacity. And unfortunately, in our private sector as well, the type of legal capacity you need is not there. So perhaps, in this type of situation, you could probably use the expertise available in other countries. It would be a little expensive, but sometimes, they say, penny wise, pound foolish. So sometimes in trying to prevent certain expenditure in the beginning, you run into a much bigger problems later. The other problem that I mentioned, the contract enforcement, which is very critical, not only for foreign investments, but for the local investors as well. And bulk of your investment eventually comes from the local investment. That, I think we need judicial reforms for that. You see, for example, UAE itself is a very good example. A lot of foreign investors in UAE had this complaint that your courts are not fair, or or your judicial system is beyond our comprehension. So they set up the IFCs. These are special courts where there are British judges sometimes, and the British common law is used there and everything, and that was a great encouragement for the foreign investors. So we have to, I think we need some thinking out of the box.
So there's something for Pakistan to learn from this particular experience,
Yeah,
and how beneficial that could be in the future.
That could greatly inspire, that could greatly enhance the confidence of foreign investors. And if we, in the next 10, 20 years, like as we are planning, and we are desperately needing that, the type of investment we need of 70, 80, $90 billion in the next 10, 15 years, then we will have to take those steps. I think without that, it would be a little sort of, our expectations might be a little far-fetched.
Right, Dr. Manzoor, now when it comes to contract enforcement, the kind of experience the United Arab Emirates, which has been mentioned by His Excellency now, what is there for Pakistan to learn, and is it doable here in Pakistan?
Why not? I mean, it should be doable, and especially after this Recordec experience, I think the government has realized. I mean, I think there's in the Ministry of Law, there's special, and especially there's a unit, I think, with the Attorney General's office dealing with this disputes, and so that we don't get to this stage of actual international arbitration. I think there's some thinking that the UAE, and they're also thinking that maybe some other country like South Korea, they have investment ombudsman. So maybe the foreign investors doesn't need to go there if already this gets resolved here. And also they are looking at these investment treaties that they're signed, that something which is too much unilateral, favoring other. They're reviewing all those. So all these things are, I think, going to make a difference.
Right. When we talk specifically about food security,
yes.
Now recently we've already had discussion a couple of times. This time around, Pakistan had some higher yields in a number of crops. Now, which country out of the two can take the maximum benefit when it comes to the agriculture sector and ensuring the food security, and how bilateral cooperation on this particular front can be enhanced in future?
I think it's for both countries, because the Middle Eastern, they also need their food security, because they don't grow much food. And so they are getting this new virgin land, especially a lot of land was lying which was unutilized, I think in Thar area and others. And so they're going to make that investment, and with the modern machinery, etc., and also with some water, how to get there. So they will bring in that, and our side is going to provide this land. So both sides are going to, and we might end up with, say we are currently exporting maybe 5 billion, and it's estimated that we may soon be doubling that. And also we import something like, quite, I think, 10 billion or something like that. And that might also be much, the volume might be reduced. I mean, the last 2-3 years, you could see that we were importing $2 to $3 billion worth of cotton, and then there was wheat, etc. The crops where we used to be surplus at one time. So they're trying to bring back that productivity through modern seeds, etc. So it's going to answer your question.
So
it's going
to
to
address
benefit
this
both
particular
countries.
food security problem, is agriculture the only area, or do we have some potential when it comes to the livestock also?
Yes, it should be, but we don't hear it so much, although livestock is more than 50% of agriculture GDP. You know this, but I haven't really heard too much about that. Although, I mean, this will be.
So what are the prospects? I mean, is there?
Prospects are very high because, you know, we are currently one of the biggest producers of milk, but this milk, a lot of it gets wasted because first, we don't process too much. Over 90% is, you know, there's very little, less than 10% is packaged milk. So that, which can last a little longer time. You know, open milk just gets, and so if we start processing, a lot of this wastage will be removed. And, you know, it's very easy to make cheese and many other milk products. One of the things I know is, New Zealand did. At one time, they were spending a lot of resources on producing cars. And then they said, well, perhaps if we try something else, let's go to agriculture. Let's shut down our car industry. We are a small population, 4 or 5 million. We don't need to produce, let's get them cheaper outside, and let's go with that. And their experience was that their per capita income, they became one of the richest countries in OECD because of this change in emphasis, that they said, okay, our strength lies in agriculture, and let's go for you know, value addition agriculture.
Right, Mr. Jawad, your understanding regarding that. When it comes to addressing the food security, agriculture and livestock, how do you separately deal with that?
Yeah, these are some very good points that have been mentioned, and I would like to add to that. You know, some very small countries like Netherlands, for instance, you know, they have tens of billions of dollars of exports, although the size of the cultivable land is far less, just a fraction of what we have in Pakistan. It's because they, you know, first of all, the yield is much better. Then they process it and then they market it. We don't do that, you know, as you know, very eloquently mentioned. The second thing is, you see that we still have antiquated agriculture in Pakistan for most part. For instance, we don't have drip irrigation for most part in Pakistan, which is now prevalent in most countries of the world, you know, like most sort of, you know, emerging economies, developed countries. So that results in a huge wastage of water, and we are a water short country. So it's actually a tragedy that we are not using drip irrigation. Secondly, you know, like there's no capital in the agriculture in terms of what is required. And because of that, because the investment is not there, the crop yield is far less. India has a crop yield, just a neighboring country like from Lahore, you know, India is literally a stone's throw away. And the crop yield in many crops is 2 times or 3 times, you know, like.
Is it solely because of the better water management, or is it because of some other
multiple
factors
factors
also?
Multiple factors, better seeds, you know, like cheaper electricity that is provided to them, sort of, you know, better water management, you know, and also because now India is developing bigger companies now as well. So, you know, because we have to move to the area of corporate farming, you know, like that's where, so you have to do it in an organized way rather than those small farmers. You know, you can't really enhance productivity to a great extent there. Now, I think one particular point which needs to be mentioned here, you have to develop what in economics we call a comparative advantage. You know, we have not really, you are not really playing on our strength. You know, what is our comparative advantage? You know, if we have to, you know, okay, it's basically has been cotton, but we haven't really gone into value addition that much. Agriculture should have been our comparative advantage, you know. And you see, in today's world, like this example is very good, that New Zealand felt that they should play on their comparative advantage rather than, you know, compete in an industry where they did not really have a great deal of expertise. The problem is that in Pakistan, we haven't decided whether we are going to for import substitution model or an export platform strategy. And we have been sort of, you know, like just hanging between these two strategies, and that has been a disaster. In the world on the whole today has moved to export platform strategy, where you basically developed your strengths in certain areas, and then develop a comparative advantage, and then you just have to export in those areas, and the other things you can import. You have to see where you are actually more competitive than other countries. If you're trying your hand at everything and not doing a good job of anything at all, it's economically very inefficient. So I think we definitely need to develop our agriculture along the modern lines, and for that, if we need to collaborate with countries like UAE, which have excess capital, which have some institutional expertise as well, because they can institutional expertise in the sense that they are basically the corporate structure is better organized, and they can actually get financing, for instance, for which our firms are not able to do internationally. So I think this could be a win-win situation for both because they need food, we need food for our population, but also we have the capacity to perhaps export food to the tune of tens of. If Netherlands can do it, why can't we? Being a much bigger country with a much bigger workforce and much bigger cultivable land.
Right. Dr. Manzoor, Ahmed also mentioned already about, specifically talking about milk now. The processing, and 10% of that happens to be the packaged one. What's required in order to get a better dividend out of this particular livestock sector, particularly when we talk about processing and packaging, and then getting the maximum dividend out of it? Do we require more of advanced technology in that particular regard?
Definitely, livestock is a very important area, and we have fallen far behind the world standards in that, unfortunately. I would also say that, you see, in livestock, first of all, of course, you have to have modern farms, which in Pakistan we don't really have yet. We claim that we are the third largest producer of milk, but that is, what milk is that? That is buffalo milk. We are not the third largest producer of cow milk in the world. It's buffalo milk. But buffalo milk could be, it could be a great source of sort of, adding value, because, for instance, in Italy, this mozzarella cheese, is made from buffalo milk, and buffalo milk sells at a high premium in Italy. This bufala that they produce. So basically, we have to, if that is an area where we have a competitive advantage, because most of the cattle in milk-producing cattle in Pakistan are buffaloes, water buffaloes rather than cows. So we have to see where we could use that expertise. And we haven't done so, because it's been very rightly said that a lot of the milk produced here is wasted, because it's a perishable commodity. If you won't preserve it, if you won't package it, it will go to waste. And that is why I think we really need to invest, and not just invest in terms of developing our agriculture, but also we need to invest in terms of R&D. For example, better seed varieties, not just importing seed varieties which are doing better in other countries, but developing seed varieties which are good for the local environment, which are better suited to our climate and our soil. We haven't done that. So I think there's a great deal that we can do in this particular area.
Right. Dr. Manzoor Ahmed, one last question. When we talk about the people-to-people contacts, now, when it comes to the level of business-to-business contacts, how the business-to-business contacts between Pakistan and the United Arab Emirates have been, and what are those particular avenues where it could be enhanced in future?
I think UAE is one of the easiest for these business contacts, because it's nearby. Freight is cheaper, and getting a visa is comparatively much cheaper. But there's scope far more than what's at present. And there's a lot of potential. For example, this I forgot about this. You're saying about livestock, and Pakistan is a big exporter of meat to UAE, and this could go up many times more. Pakistan's special expertise, halal meat, etc. So this is good, and a lot of other things that because UAE people also know Pakistan well, and we know so the normal fear which some other countries experience should not be the case with UAE. So I think all this investment that is being talked about, if that materializes, this will be a very big step. But at the same time, although Pakistan recently was in the process of, they have signed some kind of free trade agreement, but the details are not known. And India has done an open, big free trade agreement, and Pakistan needs to go in that direction, so that the markets, I mean, whatever the machinery, etc., comes, can come in without hassles here. And so our things could go without hassle there. So I think Pakistan needs to work on that.
Right. Mr. Jawad, as Dr. Manzoor has said, that getting a visa is easy. Now, what other measures are required in order to enhance more and more people-to-people contacts between UAE and Pakistan?
I think like exchange of students, for instance, cultural exchanges, then tourism. You see, I mean, there's so much to see in Pakistan. We have so much history which the UAE lacks. You know, that's a relatively sort of, you know, like a new country, and sort of, you know, like, and they don't have the type of historical sites we have in Pakistan. Then they don't really have the type of mountainous regions that we have in Pakistan. They don't really have the kind of natural scenery that we have all around Pakistan. They don't, you know, there's so much in Pakistan that should be of interest to them. We have not developed that, you know, because first of all, we don't have the infrastructure, you know, like if a tourist comes to Pakistan, do we have those good hotels everywhere? Do we have sort of, you know, like that paraphernalia which is associated with tourism? Because, you know, tourists, when they come to a country, you know, the country's developed so, even UAE itself, Dubai, they have developed so many activities in Dubai that you could go for deep sea fishing, you could go for theme parks, you could go for even skiing in the summer, you know, like literally hundreds of activities they've created. We haven't done anything at all. I mean, you know, so we haven't really leveraged that. So I think tourism could be a great area, and there's so much tourism we could get not just from UAE, from Gulf. And vice versa also, like, you know, the trade relations, of course, you know, we have a sizable trade, but it can go further. Then in the field of education, like I said, there's so many different areas where sort of, you know, like, where we could enhance the interaction between the two countries.
Mr. Jauhar Saleem Former, Foreign Secretary, thank you very much for taking time out for Views on News tonight. Really appreciate that. And Dr. Manzoor Ahmed, Member Task Force Tax Reforms, thank you very much for your time also. It's been really an insightful discussion. Look forward to this particular very important visit of the caretaker Prime Minister to the United Arab Emirates and the likely outcomes of it. With that, we come to the end of today's show. Till the next one, take good care of yourselves.